Right, so I would like to call to order the Town of Annapolis Royal Committee of the Whole meeting for September 3rd, 2025, it being 6 p.m. I'll start with the public notice to be included in the agenda for streaming. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Town of Annapolis Royal YouTube channel. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to having your image, voice, and comments recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or CAO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. So all of the council members are present. There are no absence or notices of no absence. We have a couple of additions to the agenda. One is in camera under section 22. The topic being contracts, and the second is a discussion around the water utility interest adjustment. Any other additions to the agenda?
Just one, a read of the letter of thank you to the Naval Day Committee.
Okay.
And that can be under correspondence, whatever you think appropriate.
Okay. Great. So there being no other additions, we'll consider the agenda approved. Are there any conflict of interest issues that should be addressed? No? Okay, great. So has everybody had a chance to look at the committee of the whole minutes? Any additions or changes? No? Okay, so we'll consider those adopted. So therefore we have now come to the presentations. So our first topic is the overall direct responsible charge.
Yes. So we are referring specifically to Mr. Ken Knox, who has achieved the unachievable, which will get all the certifications in place in very short order for supervision of our infrastructure. So
Wonderful.
we deeply appreciate
My
that.
pleasure.
Mhm.
It's not been an easy thing, the whole position and your ability to work around and also to have your job description modified and just work with us on that. And as a very small token of our appreciation, I want to give you a personal thank you from council and staff.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you. Absolutely my pleasure to do all that done, so.
It was a lot of hard work,
Yeah,
and he did it all online without going to any conferences or any,
to say, learning is good for your brain, so.
yeah.
but it shows it can be done, that it was achievable.
Yeah,
Within
And
a year.
everybody said it couldn't be done within that timeframe.
yeah, they just 4 months in a row, for exams, so.
Wow.
It was fun.
It was intense, so we really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You'll see a picture of a very desperate woman on it to symbolize the female council saying, help. Thank you.
Great. So the next topic under presentations is the water utility inquiry, and we're welcome Ms. Connie Arnold. We have 3 minutes, right? To speak, and we'll hand the floor to you now, Connie.
Oh, okay, thank you. It will take me a moment. I didn't realize I would be up first. So let me put on my glasses. And
Maybe just while you're doing that, I'll just say that the council doesn't respond typically to presentations. We'll listen and then there'll be a discussion later, okay?
sure, well, it's not exactly a presentation, but I just take notes.
Sure, yeah.
I have a duplex, 176, 178 St. George. And I live in 178 and I rent 176. And I have done this, literally for decades. I bought the house back in 1999. I had spent these decades with the system in which the tenant put in $100 deposit toward their water bill. Because my tenants are required to take care of their own water bills. And it's always in the lease, that this is a requirement and so on and so forth. And I had a pair of troublesome tenants who finally vacated at the beginning of March of this year. And on like February 27th or 28th, I received a copy of an email from the town, from Melanie, asking these tenants to please pay their water bill. And it turns out they haven't paid the water bill at all, and I was not informed. So in the succeeding months, Melanie continued to send these tenants emails telling them to pay their water bill, and they didn't respond. I had had the water switched to my name effective the day that they were actually out, it was March 8th. You know, pursuant to bringing in another tenant the following month. So at any rate, there are 4 or 5 of these bills that go out, or, you know, email bills to the tenants with a copy of me, and then in the end, I think it was August 16th or 17th, I received a copy of an email from, Melanie, indicating that they're unable to get in touch with these tenants, that the mail has been returned from the post office, so that assumes that, you know, you have to renew every year at the post office, you know, your PO box, so apparently they just had mail accumulate and then, you know, obviously did not renew it because presumably they're no longer living within the town. And so at this point, Melanie tells me, you are now responsible for the water bill and all interest, or I had said, you know, I don't mind paying the water bill, and in fact, I would have paid it right away had I been asked. But the water bill went from, on the 27th of February, $346.04 to $650.87 as of the 12th of August. And that seems to me to be quite extreme in terms of interest or late charges or whatever it was. So as I said, you know, I emailed back and said, you know, I'll pay the bill, but I don't want to be paying all these interest and other charges. And I came up later, you know, figuring Melanie really can't make these sorts of decisions. So I came up later and talked here in the office to both, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name.
Sandy,
Oh, no,
Yeah.
Sandy, I know, the other.
no, you spoke to Mel.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So when she's saying she spoke to Melanie, she spoke to Mel Stubbs,
Oh, no.
who does the water bills.
oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so at any rate, I would like to point out that I'm puzzled at why they dropped the $100 requirement for, the tenants. It seems to me that's a logical sort of thing to do. In part because if a tenant is gonna skip a water bill, they're usually gonna do it when they move out, right? Instead of paying the last one. And the $100 covers most of the minimum of a water bill. And I did have this happen once with a tenant. You know, one of those, this goes back 8, 9 years, you know, they took off with no notice. And they did have their $100 deposit, so I paid the balance on it, and that was that. And when I asked Sandy why it had been dropped, she said she didn't remember. I would suggest that be reinstated. That seems to me to be a logical protection for both the town and the owner of the property. I received no notices at all that the tenant was not paying their water bill. I was told that I had received them, and then when they checked, they discovered that no, they had not sent me any emails indicating that these bills were unpaid. If they had done so, I would have been able to evict these tenants earlier because their lease required them to pay the water bill, and while the Residential Tenancies Board can't do that much about a lot of difficulties that tenants can present to the owner. One thing they're kind of harsh on is if you say you're gonna pay this, you better pay it, because if you don't pay it, you're out. So not being notified that they had not paid that first water bill, which would have been due, I would believe, at the end of September, I would have been able to get them out quite a bit earlier. So that was, kind of a hardship on me, and it seems to me that the town needs to be a lot more careful about, if you're gonna hold the landlord responsible for the water bill, you better be telling them when it's not paid. Instead of letting it drag on and build up, interest charges and all of that. Now. Seeing if I'm leaving anything out here, that's kind of the main thing. And I had never heard of this, I guess you set up the Annapolis Water Utilities. Whatever, what is it called, the Annapolis?
And
Water.
Annapolis Royal Water Utility.
Yeah, okay, in the past, once again, I mean, things change, but, I don't recall ever seeing anything about it. It actually sounds like only the tenant is responsible, or the person in whose name the water is responsible. That probably should be clarified also, because I looked through it. It probably is to the town's advantage to make it as clear as possible.
Sorry, we're going over the time and I'm gonna
Okay.
have to, but thank you very much for your
Okay,
perspective. We appreciate it and, we'll have a discussion regarding it.
okay, are you gonna discuss it now, or should I leave, or does it come
No,
up?
it's on the
The
agenda.
next
Yeah.
Oh,
one.
okay.
So we just, to clarify though, Connie, you're asking for the interest to be written off?
Yeah. So I paid the
Just
bill, but
kind of-
not the interest, as I said, I was never informed of any of this until.
Just so
Well,
council is
into-
aware of what your request is, I just wanna make it clear,
Okay,
right? So that's, right, that's what you're asking, is that the interest be written off?
yes, please.
Okay.
So, we actually have one more topic and then we'll go to that. Is there any other public input that, anyone wants to give? Great, so we'll move on to new business. And the first item being the water utility interest adjustment.
So in the council package, there's a tab outlining all of the emails that were sent to both the tenant and Connie, outlining that the amount was due. Which you have in your package. The copy of the statement is also there. The interest is only $56.76. There is no other charges. The charges are all the water base and the usage. And that is the statement that's in your package. Now, as more interest, Connie, it still was outstanding as of August 31st. So when the interest was charged on September 2nd, the interest is now $65.67. That
May I ask a question then?
No, sorry, it's,
Well, this does not reflect the bill that was sent on February 27th, that's my point, that's where I
yeah,
came
so
up
the
with
bill is
three.
$659.78. That's the bill that you received. And the interest is the
Um,
65.67 as of today.
That's not from the February 27th bill, though, if you
So-
were.
Oh, no,
I'm really sorry to cut you off, but we follow Robert's Rules of Order and so right now the discussion has to be amongst the council members. Apologize.
So I don't know if council and there, we include the copy of the policy stating that the homeowner is responsible for all water bills to tenants. And as was brought up, there was a motion in January of 2023 that removed the $100 deposit. Deposit was returned or was stopped at that time because the tenants were still leaving, and then it was trying to figure out the interest. If they were long-term tenants, we gave them back the check plus the interest to find them, and it just didn't seem to be working that way.
So we were holding it like a damage deposit?
We're just holding it as a deposit, yeah. And the way that the policy worked is the tenant had to pay the final bill in full. And then we reimbursed the $100 plus the interest. We didn't take the $100 plus interest off the last bill. They had to pay it in full before they got the deposit back. And if they didn't pay it, we just kept it.
And I think this was part of the trying to reduce non-value added work. If it takes us too long to collect, obviously it's not a way for us. It's not good use of our staff time.
I'm not sure if there was any other questions.
So the bill was paid except for the interest?
The bill has not been
The
paid
bill
to
has
date.
not been paid to date. So it's still collecting interest.
Correct.
And we don't have a requirement for a secondary signer or
So the new.
for renters.
For renters, so the new program. That we can add a secondary so that the homeowner and the tenant both get copies of the bill. But it's, yeah, but Mel did send statements, when the tenant said they were leaving, trying to get the funds paid and to make the owner aware of the outstanding loan.
But she didn't receive any bills before that time, the bills that weren't being paid.
No, because that's kind
It
of,
was just in their name.
that's in their name.
So I'm gonna ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
What you just, cause I'm not sure I'm understanding correctly, cause that was my question too, but so. Are you saying now? Like, if we were to do it today, if I was renting to somebody today, now both of them are on.
The new system.
The new
allows-
system allows for both the property owner and the tenant to be on there.
Yeah.
However, in this situation, they were part of the previous system. And so only the tenant was on there, so we could not communicate with the property owner about the outstanding bills until the tenant was vacating the property.
Right, because it's in
One
one
person's name,
person's name,
yeah.
the tenant's name.
So, but we've closed that loop is what I'm trying to say. So now that we shouldn't have that same situation arise again in the future.
Yes,
Okay.
and that was months
Have to
ago
be
that it
Put into a
changed.
contract, I would imagine, that both people, because you could have the option where they aren't, but I guess it's a personal privacy issue that you
Right,
can't.
right, it's voidable, right?
Yeah. So is it an either or? Like, that's what I'm confused about.
Yeah,
Under the
So they
current
have-
system, they can choose to be
Or
or?
they have to approve, they have to give permission to do
Oh,
that.
because it's a privacy issue. Yes, okay,
So if they don't give permission, we can't do that.
yeah,
But the property owner does have the right to include the water into the rent.
yeah. And the property owner could require permission as part of their leasing
Lease
agreement.
agreement. Correct.
But we can't do that. That's between
It's
the
their
property
right.
owner and the tenant. Yeah, okay, now I'm understanding. Thank
We
you.
still collect the 100.
We don't
We
do that
don't.
as
We
of
don't do that
January
anymore?
2023. Correct. There is a motion to stop that process.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't recognize you. I hear it's just the way that it works and it's.
Okay.
Any other
Questions,
questions?
the questions just being asked then about whether or not we'll consider removing the interest charges.
Do we make a motion
No.
about that at this meeting? No.
Unless we're planning.
Yes, if you want to go against your policy and not charge her the interest, then you can make a motion to remove the $65.67 off the account.
So only if we want to go against the policy, do we make a motion? We don't need to make a motion just to choose one way or the other.
Right, so if you wish to give her the refund, you have to make a motion. And if you wish not to do a refund, then there's no motion required. Because that would be following our own policy.
So how do we wrap this up then if we're not, because like, that's what I'm trying to understand. I would have thought we would have needed a motion
about what kind of, I guess a concern could be the precedent that said, if we
Sure.
forgive one person, you know, then we should forgive all, and we could get into a bit of a difficult situation. I mean, it's not that we wish to put people in an awkward position, but at the same time, we have to apply policies consistently and fairly.
And we previously made a decision not to go against our existing policies, so we have precedent that we've chosen not to do that in the past.
Correct. So the direction to staff would be not to, write
Yeah.
off the interest if that's the direction that the council.
But we don't need a motion, we just have
No.
to say that we want the direction to staff to be.
No, when our policies change, we have to publicize them, we go through expenses to publicize, let people know
Mhm.
that this is changing. And that is the mechanism, and we followed it in this case.
Yes.
So we change a policy, we change a bylaw, there's a process, we do that, there is an expense to every ratepayer. And in the end, it's public money.
So, does anybody wish to make a motion to go against the policy? Right, then shall we consider the matter closed?
Yes.
Then moving on to the next issue, we have the request for decision, to repeal and replace low income tax policy and application.
So this item's in your agenda. There's only a couple changes. One is we have removed the Commissioner of Oaths to sign off on the application. And the second is to change the household income from 28 to 31,000. And we also have updated the form to a little, I think, simpler form.
I did just have one thing, and I meant to email earlier about this, but, so under section 3.2, under income, the War Veterans Allowance Act doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, good.
So I thought it might be more beneficial if we actually, because those things change on such a regular basis, if we could sort of maybe alter the language so that it doesn't necessarily specify specific acts,
Mhm.
so that we don't have to make those changes every single time. So I don't know if there's language that we could borrow from another.
I did look at a couple other ones, one
Okay.
with Melanie worked mostly on this one. But we did have a couple pulled off that we were
Yeah.
comparing them to, but
The
Yeah,
pension
so we
act
can-
still exists, but
Right.
the War Veterans Allowance
it's gone.
is quite outdated.
Okay.
Would it be possible to say just something like pursuant to the relevant federal acts?
I'm not sure if that's.
Cause then that would,
So I guess we can leave it up to the staff to
Yeah.
figure out the
Yeah,
appropriate
if that's
wording,
the
but
only wording that.
Can
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
can we entertain the motion and, wording something like subject to updating that language?
Yeah, if that's the only thing.
And
The
does
reason
anybody
we
wish to make a
specify
motion?
specific legislation is so that if the specific legislation changes, we adapt.
We go with it, yeah.
That's so if we can, but if we can't. But I know that's why it's put in.
I think the count, I remember sort of looking at how the county had sort of filled out their form and they had, some different language around that. I can forward it to.
I have that one.
Oh, you
I
do?
printed-
Oh, you
yeah, we
did?
looked at
Okay.
that one, and I think we looked at Middleton and Wolfville. We had
Okay.
three or three.
Or maybe it was
That
Halifax.
motion, you guys,
Yeah.
discuss
Yeah,
it
sorry.
more. I'm so sorry, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Can I have a motion, please?
I move to recommend to council to approve the low income tax exemption policy. Number 2025-12 dated September 2025,
Subject to this language.
subject to. Adjustments to the appropriate language
3.2.
in 3.2.
I have a second. Okay, now you can discuss.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, nobody does.
I actually do have a question, but I just want to make a quick note here. So the only question I had around this was just, and maybe you did answer this, but I don't see it. The change from 28,000 to 31,000, how was the 31,000 determined?
We went on the listserv and asked all the
That's
other
okay.
municipalities what their,
Oh, that's where the
There.
exemption, there we
Yes.
go, I knew that, yeah, I knew I'd seen it somewhere. Thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
We'll move now on to the request for decision, repeal and replace tax collection policy. Do you wanna give us a brief preamble and then we'll ask
Yeah.
for a motion?
so this one, I just wanna get there. There was only the one change under section 5. Instead of calling it section, it should be part.
Part 6, and the verb after should be deals, I think, with an S.
6 deal, yeah, deals,
Deals.
part
And
6 deals with.
And I think Kim
Passed on, ready for
got the
next.
next meeting, yeah.
Can I have a motion, please?
I move to repeal and replace the tax collection policy. And to recommend to council to approve the tax collection policy number, 2025-15 dated September 2025.
And the seconder, please.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Right, we will move on to, request for decision, repeal and replace the human resources policy.
And so this one in your agenda package, it was just page 11, 2 sections, 3.06 and 3.07. Because of our new pension plan, we've changed that and we've updated the medical coverage.
Now, motion, please.
I'll move to recommend council to approve the human resources procedures and policy number 2025-13 dated September 2025.
I'll second that.
Right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And, here, a request for decision, repeal and replace the pension policy.
So that one is again, because we changed our pension policy. To the, it's on the second page,
4.1.
yep,
And 4.2, 4.4.
yeah, 4 point, there's a couple, yeah, so on 4.1, it's 30 hours a week. And now it's a defined benefit instead of a. Defined contribution plan. And then formulas on the gross rate, so those are just the changes.
And then just changing from policy 6.0, the policy from a policy.
Yes, and we got that one in
Just got
advance,
it.
so we
Yeah.
got that one ready.
Great.
So can I have a motion, please?
I'll move to recommend to council to approve the pension policy number 2025-14 dated September 2025.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion required?
And that goes into effect, this. September 6th, the new pension.
Friday, yeah,
So the
Saturday.
effective,
Then,
Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
so the effective date will be in this motion.
Well, it'll be in effect when we get to council on the 17th.
Get to get council, thank you.
So did we do the motion already?
Yes.
I think we did
Yeah.
vote, did we vote?
We didn't vote.
We did, all in favor, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good, so the next topic is the next council public engagement date.
We had talked about if you wanted to do one again. So what did
Well,
we
we had one proposed subject, communication policy. But it could be on that subject, because we had, do you recall we had some discussion that could be about that?
Or if it's just a meet and greet or
Yeah.
whatever. Council wishes to do.
It makes sense to, if we were gonna plan something like that, to look at after your visit to. Well, I mean, September just seems to be a bit busy, but.
That's what I was just looking at.
Starting to happen, so maybe like mid to end of October.
When are you back?
We
Yeah.
have,
24th.
For, yeah, and we need a day or two to get back.
Of October?
Yeah,
Okay.
so maybe
So-
even
Or you're the.
earlier in November or something.
Got a municipal dinner on the 27th of October. What about the week of the 10th of November?
Remembrance Day is the 11th
We have a municipal dinner on the 27th.
in Middlesex.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Let me put that in my couch.
Milton Flower Hall.
Middleton, yeah, it's
And it'll be.
5 o'clock.
Thank you.
Don't be late.
Never forget.
And just remember, like, if we're having it at the Legion, that it's easier for us to use the Legion on
On
Monday.
Monday.
Because they're not
Okay.
open.
Okay, what about
Uh,
November 24?
Now, isn't that coinciding with the big thing here, the markets? What date are they doing? 24th,
Of November?
yeah.
No, the,
No, it's a Fridays, they usually do it on,
the,
right?
you mean
Light?
the Christmas,
Yeah.
Parade of Light is the
It's
last
later.
Friday
Yeah.
of November.
Yeah,
And the holiday markets is the first Saturday of December.
so the Monday could be good.
Yeah, the
but-
24th.
Yeah. Where,
Put it right in.
And then we need to know what you're looking to do. Right, but we can discuss that later.
Yeah.
We'll book the,
Yeah, maybe book the
Book
date
the
and we'll give it
holiday.
some.
What
what
time did
time,
we do it
yeah.
last time? We did a little, it was
We did it
4-6, it was like 4:30.
I thought.
Was that like 4:15?
Oh, yeah, it was an
Yeah,
odd
it's
time. It was
4:15.
4:15 to 6:15 or something. I don't know why,
Well,
Just give me more time to feed
it gets
the
people's attention, right?
but maybe 4:15 to 6:30, just round off the end number.
4:15 to 4:30 is set up. What works for you, Heather?
Oh, it doesn't matter. That's fine. Actually, it does matter. 4:15 is fine.
you better take that back, It's hard, it's only, it hasn't even started yet, right?
Well, good, that's good.
That's-
Okay, we're.
Monday, November 24th at 4:15.
Except I have it
To
in.
discuss something.
To discuss something, we'll come up with something.
Agriculture?
Are we going to 6:15 or 6:30?
No, that's after the survey date.
Yeah, that'll be done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we can pick our own.
Get
homework
rowdy in here.
on
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
Where's your gavel? So.
All right, shall we move on to the next topic then, having established a date? Okay, structural assessment and condition of the work report, I suspect this one will take a little while.
Yeah.
Well, the report's in your package.
Yeah.
I will just say that he came, I think, like 2 days before. Public Works put all of the wood bumpers in, so I do have pictures. I don't know if you've been down, but the bumpers
Yeah.
have been installed for a while.
Beautifully installed.
Yeah.
All summer.
Yeah.
And then, today, I think they were down there. Filling in the potholes, that was also mentioned on the last page of the.
Where the
report.
grass is growing through?
Where the
Yes,
grass, so we
yeah.
did,
Cold patch.
So you have two items that
Oh,
they're off
okay.
their list.
yes.
Great.
We cut all the grass now. Just except for the carpet. Take it on.
Didn't we say that we were going to ask, I don't know if it was Abel or who it was, but just for ideas of other things that we could do with the wharf?
Yes, so that was Ames.
Ames, okay, sorry.
And I did talk to Matt and put it in the budget, and then, we got the money for the shoreline restoration. And he's frantically working on that, so I, like,
Maybe to focus.
yeah, he wouldn't have time to do anything if he wanted to ask Able Engineering who did the report, but I'm not sure if they're think of the box kind of engineers.
Okay.
But that would be, an option for council to do. But it clearly needs some attention and some money, and that's kind of the problem. Do we wanna spend money if we don't know what we're doing with it, and we don't know what we're doing with it, do we spend the money? But
Well, that's,
it's like the,
yeah, that was the question I wanted to ask was because, so. Regardless of what we do with it in the long run, it currently is an asset of the town. we're being advised that there's a kind of base minimum amount of repair work that should be done to keep the assets stable right now. But that doesn't mean we have to choose, that it's separate decisions to me. There's the decision about whether we want to maintain an existing asset of the town to a base level. And then there's a separate decision about what's the future of that asset. I personally feel like we have to kind of separate those decisions a little bit, because if we keep saying we're not going to do anything to it until we decide what we're doing in the long run, we're going to end up making what we're going to do in the long run much harder, more difficult, and more expensive. And so to me, there's an onus on us to consider the base level of maintenance, even while we're making the bigger decision. But this decision has been so long and so drawn out over so many years. And it's one of the things that I'm personally concerned that we haven't made much progress on. But I'm trying to remind myself, we haven't even hit our first year. You know? So I'm not like knocking us for it, but I'm saying, like, to me, they're slightly separate decisions, in the sense that I would no more suggest that we not maintain the boardwalk or a road because we don't know what's going to happen with it in the future, then I would suggest that we don't maintain any other asset in the town. We have a responsibility to maintain the town's assets to a certain level. And so I'm very concerned that when we decide not to do the bare maintenance, we're actually kind of abdicating our responsibility to maintain an asset and making it a bigger problem for us when we actually are going to have to decide what the future looks like. And that I'm not even talking about what those future plans could be. I'm just like, we need to get from there to there. And it's that.
That's my worry is that by not maintaining, we make a decision, or a decision may be made for us at a point that doesn't give us options in the future.
And the cost of, I always think about what's the cost of no decision. Because even if we decide that we can't repair it, we can't rebuild it, we can't do anything, there's still a really big cost to deal with even at that point. So if we can do whatever we can to make that less impactful, that seems like it
You
would
wanted to
be.
say something about it?
I guess I can appreciate what you're saying. My sort of thought process is, if there's a creative alternative that maybe doesn't have the same threshold standards to maintain it at that same level, where we could save money and still use it and, or use it in a different sort of capacity. We don't have any money budgeted currently for any repairs on the wharf. We have set aside some money to get some ideas from the consultation team, but I mean, I guess my thought process is, if there's a creative alternative that we could work with that isn't gonna cost us the same amount of money, that we could potentially put into our budget for next year, then that, I don't know, I think it's worth sort of considering.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I would say that again, separate issue. These are base repair stuff, not future use stuff. This is things rotting away.
But I'm saying, like, if it's used in a different capacity and those things are not necessarily needed in that same capacity, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know at what standard a wharf is held to versus something like the Queen's Wharf, do you know what I mean?
I do. I was under the impression though that they were giving us this is the bare bones, your sheet metal's failing kind of repairs. This isn't anything fancy. We have holes at the bottom of the wharf and those need to be repaired no matter how it might be used in the future. That's how I interpreted it.
And on page 17, it shows from 24 to 25.
Yeah.
That one hole how.
How it
Much
changed.
larger it is over the year. And, but to repair the sheet piling on the wharf is extremely expensive,
Mhm.
right? Like.
So the bigger the holes we get, the more expensive we get.
It is, and then in 2020, September of 2025. No, that was when he sent it to me, in November of 2024. Ken reached out and got a price for the anodes that they talk about and it was $114,000.
That's his 5 years, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, and they also imply in this report though that we could do sections of anodes, because they make a recommendation where if you don't do any other anodes, do these ones here.
Yeah, at the end, so when I called Digby Marine this morning, the largest ones that they have are $205 a piece, and they're supposed to be 8 inches apart. Just because I was just trying to get you some quick numbers. And like I said, the easy things we've kind of done, so we've done the wooden
Yeah.
bumpers. We have, in the last report, they said to remove the rungs, because they were
Broken.
rusted off, so we did remove them, and then on this one, it's saying you either have to repair them or discontinue the use. Well, if we're not having boats docked up on it, we, as in staff, were assuming that they were disuse. But then it was brought to my attention, well, if someone falls over and we're trying to bring them out, with them now, we don't have a ladder to climb under. So just,
Yeah,
Say something? I don't think we can compare the wharf to a road. A road is necessary. That being said, it's not a working wharf. It's not making us any money. And, but every time I go to that wharf, there's somebody on it. The Tai Chi group go out there and gain a lot of pleasure from that wharf. I personally gain a lot of pleasure from that wharf and would love to see some options. However, with the cost of anodes and sheet metal, we would have to raise taxes. There's nothing in the budget to cover this. We have a really tight, small town budget. And this is an extremely expensive repair to keep it going. So kind of like Heather said, is if we could, as soon as possible, get some creative ideas as to some options instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for 5 years. Because that's all we're gonna get. We can still do repairs, but it's still at the end of its natural life. It doesn't matter what we can spend $200,000 and it's still not the solution.
Is there somebody else we could ask if James is too busy?
and I can, yeah, and so our budget goes till March, so I can. The section that Matt's working on hopefully should be done in a couple months, and I could, go back to him. And I'd have to put it out to tender anyways, to see who bids on it, because I can't remember how much money we put in the budget.
it was 15 or 25.
Yeah, so it would be over my budget, yeah. To just get quotes, I think it would have to go to tender, so, I can definitely pull something together, maybe in November or December to put it there, but.
I think the other piece too is, I mean, up until this point, we've exhausted. The staff have done a wonderful job applying for every wish grant. So if there's a way for us to present an alternative that may come from this report for, something, I don't even know what alternative would be creative, but if we could sort of pivot it to try to get funding under the new idea, that might be an option, because up until now, there hasn't been any money.
And so we do have the grant, Chris, it's called, I can't remember what the letters stand for. And they're working on that phase 2 of that, section of the wharf. Facing town
Mhm.
due to the terraced kind of landing on it. So the engineers are working on that option, but that's only for that one side of protection, right? So we'd still have to do something on the end and the,
And the
And I don't know
report
what
kind of talks about the
north
north
side.
side being the
Yeah.
side that is of most need of repair, but that's the opposite side to the side of the, not even opposite, but it's the,
the back of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't
the
know.
end of it, I don't know how you describe it.
Yeah.
It's the very end of it, because if you think about it as a rectangle coming out of the land, this is the side that's the terrace
Yeah.
possibility. And this is the side that they're saying needs the
That's the
anoids, and that would be north, because
Okay.
that's North Mountain. Well, but you know,
Deepest water.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Which is,
So,
yeah.
there's a lot of steel exposed to salty water,
yeah,
so.
so. But what, the only reason I point that out is that even with that creative use idea, it still requires us to deal with the parts that aren't covered by that side of the
Yeah.
creativity. And I'm not, you know, I'm not like kind of like rah, spend money, but I'm also very hesitant to allow an asset to become in worse condition that's gonna cost us more in the end. I'm trying to discover if there's somewhere in the middle where we do some of the, like, we've picked off the low hanging fruit already that could be picked. And if there's other things, like they're saying, only this section. If you're only gonna do this, if you were gonna do any anoids, only do this section. If there's, you know, they've identified like a smaller number of major hole issues, then we wouldn't necessarily be looking at the whole of all of the repairs, but just the areas that could become an almost insurmountable problem. But then what I can't turn my brain off from is that even if we decide to do nothing, that's still $1 million problem.
The shoreline project is probably 7 or 8 phases. We're not even through the causeway. The
Yeah.
province still has not delivered an engineering assessment. There are people who think that that should be phase 1, but we know that we're dealing with the province, we have no control. It's possible that phase 2 of the project could be another marsh restoration, which includes the wharf, but in a different context, like a pier or something. But first we have to get through phase 1, because staff are dealing with phase 1, and we have issues with phase 1, like we're, you know, it's not sure that, you know, where we're gonna go with that, right? Because we have to deal with property owners and the public and everybody's expectations. So to me, we're working in a phased approach. We're already looking at the causeway. That's one section. You could call it phase whatever, could be phase 8, I don't know. But to me, we've secured most of the funding for phase 1. We can move on to phase 2, as staff have already started. They got the embankment, that's part of that. And then in November, when he's available, we can deal with the creative engineer that we have. But to me, there's no greater impact. I mean, that whole shoreline is basically under threat. So to me, whether it's phase 1 today or phase 3 tomorrow, it's whatever we get funding for. I think we could probably swing a second shoreline restoration project that includes whatever we do with the wharf. But we need engineering advice. But I'd be good with
Do you
waiting to
think
make
the
sure we get the
greatest
right one.
priority is to get the new engineering advice and then?
Oh, I think that's the key, is to get somebody creative, and
Yeah.
we need the talented guy who could deliver, or gal who could deliver it, and we're lucky to have Matt.
So what we would be looking at is the tender would go out in November-ish, then about a month, right, to,
So I'm off 2 weeks in October,
okay.
right? And yeah.
I know
and
where
I'm-
she's going.
Yeah, I'm not trying to stop.
Yeah.
this, I'm just trying
Trying
to
to
say like,
figure-
what are the next
yeah.
steps?
So-
And how, like, to your point, how do we, not just show, but how do we actually make some progress?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I can, you know, try and get it out, the tender document, request for proposals document out. In November. Hopefully have them closed in December. And then hopefully if they could have done something back to us by February, then we have it for budget talks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And,
But
yeah, but
Whether-
then if we have to ask for grants, that's like likely, what, a year till you hear on most
Well, no,
grants?
grants could be
Yeah, they come in all the time,
Mhm.
but in the last 5 years, we've never seen a grant for a wharf.
No.
Yeah,
No, so it has to be called something else.
Yeah.
But shoreline restoration too has a nice ring to it.
No, I looked up the pier thing. They don't differentiate
Oh,
between
darn.
pier and wharf.
It's a good try.
I tried that.
Call it something else, but I'm sure we can come up with something that can swallow a whole wharf.
Are there any repairs that can be done by Public Works or,
Those are the ones we've done already.
yeah, we've done them all?
Yep, so today and finishing maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure if can get them done or not, but all the potholes have been done. The bumpers have been done. We can't do any welding on the side.
No
We
welding?
can't do any of the.
you can take it at first, can't you?
Don't you all have to learn? Don't you wanna
It's
learn
not
trick, like
calified.
trick welding?
If you send me to welding school, I will gladly weld.
Thought.
I'm finished with the other stuff, that's the time.
Be bored.
Okay, so our plan forward then is to, as quickly as we can, put a tender out and get some engineering proposals back in, look at those and see if any of those give us relief from needing to do these very, very expensive repairs. And then if that's not the case, then that's the time we have to have the discussion. I wonder if it's worth doing something for the public consultation to talk through that whole thing. And make people aware that if we can't find grants, then, we need to decide whether we keep the wharf or raise the taxes or what we do to solve the problem. See if we can find a rich billionaire who wants to invest in it. Does that sound like a forward?
It's a catch-22.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah, and
there's
it's
no-
the same thing is that, sometimes you gotta, like, maybe we just have to spend a bit of money to keep it there to keep the options open, but we don't have that money either,
No.
so.
But it's not just a bit. We're talking
No.
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's a
Well-
bit in proportion to $1 million to knock it down, or 4 million to repair it, or
Yeah.
10 million to, rebuild it, right? So,
That's what
But
I
he-
try to keep in mind on the fact that, yes, even the choice of we're getting rid of it is going to come with a tax raising price tag.
Yeah.
And that has to be, that has to be the reality for the discussion. I love the idea of going to the public. If we did, or when we do, is better the way to put it, when we do, I would really like for us to be able to say, if this project cost $1 million, here's how it would impact taxes. If this project costs $4 million, here's how it would impact taxes. If this project costs $7 million, here's how it would impact taxes. Because I think that's the tangible information that the residents, the ratepayers actually need to see. Not just, it'll cost a lot of money, but what would that actually look like on your tax bill and for how long? That's, I think,
if we can't get any grants.
Yeah,
That's
if
the
you
other
can't get
thing that we
grants.
would want to do is figure out an option for some of the very vocal people who don't live in the town to contribute.
yes, there's that too.
And I think that's what Matt did at the last.
He
public
He did a
meeting.
great
He
job.
said it was 1 something million to demolish it,
Yeah.
there's 3 options, and he did lay it out. Now, he didn't put it in tax dollars per unit, like per
No,
person.
it was a 15 cents.
Yeah. People,
There you
that's
go.
your number.
Yeah.
419 tax bills.
Yeah,
not
it was-
people.
It was a
Right?
15-cent increase to taxes when we had that
When we
meeting
had-
at
and that
the
was
Legion, and that
Many
was just,
years ago.
that was many years ago, and it was just to deal with the wharf, not anything else.
Not all the other.
Not all the other
infrastructure.
infrastructure.
So what we've agreed on then is to try and get the engineering as quickly as possible to maybe not, I don't feel like the meeting should be asking people for feedback, but just outlaying
The challenges.
the challenges and the potential pathways
Mhm.
that we could take for people's consideration. And then, later when we have something more solid, because either they'll come up with something great or the answer will be, sorry. And then to me, that's the time to go to ask for input.
Yeah.
One thought I had, like, do you often get, I don't know, Matt, is he like affiliated with the university and all these creative thinking people who think about new and different ways to do things is.
Yeah, he has
helpful.
good connections
Like the
through
Department of Engineering in Dalhousie or
Dow
something. Yeah.
and clean,
Foundation.
Clean Foundation.
Foundation.
They've got ins with them as well.
Yeah.
And we've got
So they're all
two teams of
talking.
students right now assigned, one on tourism and climate change and the other one on the tidal project.
Yeah, see,
So
let's
two
see if we can't
teams,
get a
yeah.
team that could be assigned to our wharf.
Well, like lots of times in our architectural schools, they'll put out like,
Looking
there'll be
for,
contests and send it lots of places around the world. Maybe somebody has something like that would be so out of the box or materials that we're not aware of, that, something like that. But anyways, that's more to think about later. All right, are we satisfied with the discussion on this topic?
Yeah.
Okay, shall we move on to the NSFM meeting? Sure.
so I have booked, 2 rooms in case any counselors would like to go. Addie already has a room booked because she's on the board, so they look after her accommodations. They don't look after paying it, they just
No,
look
they
after
just
booking
reserve
it.
Yeah, I thought that was.
So I'm not sure if anybody is in.
Concierge service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all of these motions that have been passed around that you've seen over the couple weeks. On changes that are coming forward, so I think. Might be good if someone could attend. I can go, but I can't vote. So,
And I can go and I will vote.
Yeah.
Um, if nobody, how do I put this? We can't vote in absentia, like, so you can't, there's no proxy votes or anything like that. But I would certainly take into consideration what everybody around the table had to say if they can't attend, but it's still just gonna be one vote. If you're not
Yeah.
able to attend, it's still only,
and there's what, 16 motions?
there's quite a few.
Are they all-
Most of them are,
Yeah.
yeah, most of them are
What
house
they are on the
hunting.
motion?
It's usually the
Usually
the
there's like
last
a half
day.
day, a full day, and then a half day. like-
Yeah.
It's usually the
It's the last
day,
morning
isn't it?
usually,
So 7?
yeah.
I,
They don't have, I would just tell you this, they do not have single day attendance rates, so you're either
all in.
all in or you're all out and you can't shift. This has been a big discussion at the board, you can't shift your membership, like your attendance from one
but if
person
it's
to another.
important for us to have someone there, I think, the difference between.
Yeah.
One day versus.
Yeah.
a half
Yeah.
day. I am able to go, but not this time, so.
I could go if I need to go, I'll go.
And there is a meeting on it, and I hope people have.
September 16th, I believe.
That, maybe after that meeting, if you could attend, it's a virtual meeting, you might get more information of
Yeah.
what the motions are. and
Yeah,
the movie.
the majority of the motions are what I would describe as housekeeping stuff. But there's a couple of what have become very contentious discussion motions.
Yeah.
And that is related to the shifting relationship between AMANS and NSFM. And and I've talked with Sandy about this, it's a very convoluted situation, and there's a lot of surprising backstory to it. But the culmination is that they used to share office space, they don't share office space anymore. They used to be set up in similar fashion in the way their governance worked, and that isn't the same anymore. NSFM has picked up a whole other layer of responsibility because they're administrating tens of millions of dollars in grant money now. And that shifts how they can work with other organizations. So they've had to do some governance housekeeping, which is a lot of where this was rooted. But it means that those two organizations now need to work with each other differently. And not everybody's happy about that. Not everybody on AMAN's side is happy about that. Not everybody on NSFM side is happy about that. And so that little set of bylaws is the part that's the most contentious and the most challenging. And that's what they're hoping everybody will attend. I think it's the 16th of September meeting, to get more information about how and why these bylaws are being proposed to
What's the
change.
time of that meeting?
I don't think it's the 16th.
What it was, let me just pull it up here.
Was it September?
It's September.
Because they're also trying to keep staff out of the meeting.
It's Tuesday, September 16th at 4 p.m.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So will we get a link?
Yes.
Yes,
It
so,
hasn't come yet. I don't think it has it.
no, it says
Just the times,
connectivity
yeah.
details will be issued shortly. And so basically it says, please be advised that our communications efforts around the prospective bylaw changes are planned for discussion at the annual general meeting. As part of our efforts to educate about the proposed changes, NSFM will be hosting an online information session on Tuesday, September 16th at 4 p.m. Connectivity details will be issued shortly. In addition, we would like to, this is where they're encouraging our regional representatives to talk to people if they have questions or try and provide them with more of the background information if we can.
But that's just their side. That's not
Absolutely.
AMAN's side.
Yeah.
Which I've tried to,
Yeah.
I sent out an email
You did.
about the
Yeah.
information that we received,
Yeah.
from the union side.
I'm concerned it goes against the principle of integration of effort. That's my biggest concern. It's just like with, we wouldn't be running Valley Waste or King's Transit with any success now if we didn't have the CAOs
Together.
meeting and preparing. So if you don't have the staff, what are you doing? And you know, a meeting every month doesn't do it. The CAOs work. Then we get the benefit of their work and then we at least informed.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I was talking to Sandy about this, but one of the approaches that they were working on was that right now, for example, the representative from AMAN sits on the board. So if something comes up at the board, that individual can't give the position of AMAN's at a board meeting because he would have to take it back to their board, secure their position, and then bring it back maybe next month or 2 months later, whatever, however that might work out. What they were talking about, and I'm saying talking about, so I'm not even sure if this is how far this has progressed in discussions, but was that the executive of each group would meet together instead of having those individual representatives on the board. The executives of each group would have working meetings together so that they could work together on things directly, not in the formal confines of a board meeting, and then be able to progress work from that perspective. Another part of it was simply that NSFM now has a staff with policy analysts. And so in the past, they used to get policy analyst work in some instances from AMANs, and that hasn't been happening for the last couple of years primarily. So those are some of the issues that are on the table, but that's like that September meeting. I hope that's one of the things that they address is how they envision that these groups may work together in the future, because that's something that's not being, I don't feel is being communicated clearly right now on either side of the equation. It's not being clearly communicated, but I know sitting in the board meetings, I can see how frustrated he is that it's going around the table of the board and everybody's able to make their input, but he's not because he has to take it back to his board.
So, can I suggest that we see what comes of the September 16th? We've got at least a second person who can attend regardless. Lynn, you were considering it, or,
I wouldn't be able to attend the whole thing and,
but if you could go for one day?
I don't know, I'd have to.
Yeah,
I'd have to
okay.
And
I'm not pressuring, I'm just saying that you sort of were asking, and Amory said that you can.
And I just was looking to see when the early bird deadline is.
So you're allowed to attend for only one session? For one day? You have to go for the whole thing?
We don't
Yeah,
have to.
you don't have
to
be there.
You don't have to
pay.
go, but you have to pay and register for the whole thing.
But if it,
How
if
much
it
is
means
that?
we've got another voice.
It's in the things.
$300 or something like that. Okay, so next on the agenda is unfinished business, and we have none of that. Apparently, and then correspondence, so the Property Valuation Services Corporation Annual Report. Any comments? All right, the value for money audit of the Nova Scotia Firefighters School.
Shocking.
Yeah, I was an interesting read and I did that. I pulled the exact summary and a couple of pages from it. It's interesting because I'm not sure that the firefighters who've been trained feel it's that desperately bad. So that I, it's gonna cause some contention. The question that I have is, I feel like a lot of things, standards are being established that work for urban settings based on urban needs, and we don't always have the resources in rural communities to live up to those standards, and so what happens is we get no service instead of at least something that meets our needs, and I'm a little concerned that, this may be one of those cases, but I feel like I need to read into it a little bit more. But it's,
It's kind of sad because our fire department is there every Wednesday.
Yeah.
Working towards every single standard.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
do really well. There they are out there now
Mhm.
without the background of such a society.
yeah, and I mean, they apparently they shut down people mid-course, so people were there training and, it takes several weekends, people go and do this and it was
It
shut down.
felt heavy-handed to me, like reactionary, not thought out.
Well, and I mean, it's terrible that there was a death and that, it was preventable, that's
Mhm.
absolutely not acceptable.
And they did nothing about it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the shocking part.
And I guess that's the
Mhm.
part that I did concern me was the findings that, they haven't kept up with sort of the requirements for conflict of interest, for
Mhm.
procedures, things like that, because that stuff,
They're down to 5 board members and,
yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have one more topic, Amory, you wanted to speak to?
I
Naval
would,
Days.
thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I would like to read this in the public record. It's a letter to Julia Hall as Chair of the 2025 Natal Days Organizing Committee. So dear Julia, the purpose of this letter is to express Town Council's thanks to you and the members of the Natal Day Organizing Committee for the wonderful Natal Days 2025 event. Council did not meet for a regular meeting in August, so this is our first opportunity to thank you all publicly. Beginning with the debriefing from the 2024 event, you were able to build on the work of prior years and the lessons learned. The committee met regularly and each member contributed to what was clearly an excellent team effort right up to the cleanup after each event. And now specifically, I was there at the carnival and every one of them was there cleaning up after all these people. It was quite something. The participation from the public and their comments say it all. The program had something for everyone. There were many events to choose from, and just about everyone was involved in some way through volunteering, event planning and organizing, sponsorships, donations, putting together floats, participation in and or watching events. Work has also already begun on fundraising for next year. On behalf of all of us, thank you for putting on such a stellar event. And this letter goes on behalf of Town Council and staff and the members of the Natal Day Organizing Committee were, of course, the chair, Julia Hall, Teresa Porter, Audra Everett, Joanne Laurie, Katie McLean, Krista Wright, Karen Terrio, Marilyn Francis, Darlene Soulsby, Louise Oliver, Angela Hudson, Dana Trimper, Emily Saunier, Sandra Hall, Christine Eagle, and members of the Hall family, but I know they were on council's behalf, and I will make sure that this goes on.
Yes.
All right, if there's nothing further then, can I have somebody to move
Sorry,
to
no.
take us
Must be
into
something in the
camera?
water.